sometimes the DOJ can be wrong.
Exactly. but they were saying, let's get this a fast ruling, and the Supreme Court says no.
If punting it now means that question cannot end up on the census, then that's a blow to the president. And it's a huge blow to the administration. That's something that he absolutely wanted and wanted right away.
Yeah. Judge Napolitano standing by right now. Judge, this goes back to the lower courts.
I'm trying to read 92 pages of print that is infinitesimal in size. But I must tell you, at first blush, just skimming through this, this is a significant defeat for the Trump administration and for the president personally, who, of course, wanted this question on there. And I think had understandable reasons for wanting it on there. But it definitely will not be on. And one of the reasons it won't be on is because there is a companion case in Maryland. And in that case, the judge has decided to scrutinize the information in the hard drive of the political operative who came up with this idea. Stated differently, all these allegations about a racial bias in support of the census question will now be litigated not by one but by two federal courts. And the question, it appears, will not be on the census for 2020.
Yeah, and I guess, Judge, my question would be, why would the Supreme Court, I guess this was kind of forced upon the Supreme Court. That's a fair assessment, right? The DOJ said, would you look at this? And the Supreme Court said, okay. And now they've decided this is really one of those cases that belongs in the lower courts before we look at it, which could take years.
Well, the Supreme Court is not in the business of evaluating evidence anew. But let me point out that this is a unanimous decision. Yeah, there is some disagreement with parts of it, and there's some justices pairing off. But for the most part, the decision to send this back to the lower court is 9-0. That's because when new evidence is discovered, after the trial court has ruled, after the appellate court has ruled, and while the case is pending in the Supreme Court is not in the business of evaluating new evidence. So they followed standard operating procedure here. As hot as this issue is, as much as everybody from the president to those demonstrating outside the Supreme Court now all wanted a decision, the Supreme Court did the right thing by sending this back to trial courts to scrutinize the significance of this newly found evidence and then come up with final rulings, and then those final rulings will eventually make their way back to the Supreme Court. But as you, Trace, or one of you just suggested, that cannot happen before the 2020 census. So this question is off. Who knows if it will ever come back?
They're printing these. Judge, stand by if you would. They're printing these on July 1st, so it's done. This is not going to happen.
That means this is a ruling against the president. I mean, and that's he won't be happy about that. The administration won't be happy about that. It will have implications for the discussion about immigration. And
Josh, real quick before we go back.
Well, there's a reason for conservatives to be excited about the two rulings, however, despite that defeat. And then there is this entire change happening in our judicial system that exercises judicial restraint, the idea that the courts are confined by the law. And I think what you saw here, although disappointing to many conservatives, is the court saying there is a role of the courts that is appropriate to play and inappropriate to play. We're not going to be legislating our judgment from the Supreme Court.
So I would agree with that. I feel differently about the first case, but I'm sure, while that might be a sensible Republican take on this, that the president is going to be upset that Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch, who are his guys on the bench, it was a unanimous decision.
Look,
there were no bones about this.
But I think that's the way the liberals look at the court, is whether this is a partisan or
really. Let's talk about Merrick Garland, my friend.
We're talking about the Supreme Court, not the process to get to the Supreme Court. And honestly, what we're looking at is justices taking the